Hi boys and girls, I'm reading Double Fudge and I set my timer so that we don't go over time, okay? So, let's get started. We're in the middle of chapter 9. At 8 the next morning, Dad delivered Fudge and me to Cousin Howie. Howie was dressed in his park ranger uniform, sitting in the driver's seat of an official golf cart at the entrance to the zoo. You see, Tub, if you were a ranger, you could get special privileges too. Eudora sat next to him with Minnie in her lap. The natural beauty sat him back. "Hop aboard, boys," Howie called. "Really sorry we can't invite you to join us, Tub, but we're at the limit now." Dad didn't look at all sorry. He couldn't go with us. "Keep an eye on Fudge, Peter," he called as he dashed off. I wanted to run after him. Going to a museum with him and Mom had to be better than this. But before I had the chance, Howie floored it. "Hang on!" "Hang on, everybody," he sang as he nearly mowed down a group of early morning joggers. Fudge grabbed hold of me as we zoomed along the road through the zoo. At one sharp curve, the golf cart almost toppled. Minnie laughed like crazy. The natural beauty shrieked, and the one next to me, I think it was Flora, grabbed my arm and dug her fingernails into my flesh. On the next curve, she practically ended up in my lap. She cried, "Daddy, slow down!" But Cousin Howie yelled, "Yippee!" as he swerved and curved and drove like a total maniac. "Yippee!" Minnie yelled with him. Finally, Eudora shouted, "Howie, think of the example you're setting for our children." Cousin Howie slammed on the brakes. The rest of us fell forward. "Got carried away there for a minute," Cousin Howie said. "How do we even know when we get... What do we do when we get carried away?" "We stop and count to 10, the natural beauty said, sounding relieved. "And if that doesn't work?" Cousin Howie asked. "We count to 10 again," the girl said. "And that's exactly what I'm going to do," Cousin Howie said. "Let's all count together." Cousin Howie said, he took a deep breath, counted, and then counted to 10. The natural beauties counted along with him. "I don't hear everybody counting," Cousin Howie said, turning to look at me and Fudge. This time we counted along with the others. When we got to 10, Minnie kicked his feet and shouted, "Yippee!" again. "Good, very good," Cousin Howie said. Later, when we met up with Mom and Dad, Fudge said, "Look what Cousin Eudora got me at the panda gift shop." He held out a tiny stuffed panda. "I'd bought the same one for Tootsie." "How thoughtful of Eudora to buy you a souvenir," Mom said. "It's not the one I wanted," Fudge said. "The one he wanted cost $475, I told Mom and Dad. It was life-size. "Fudge is such a scream," Flora said. "We've never met anybody like him," Fauna said. "Who has?" I thought. "And look at this," Fudge said, waving a certificate in Mom's face. "I'm an official member of the Panda Poop Club." "The Panda Poop Club?" Mom said. "Yes, I'm the only one who sniffed the poop and held it in my hands." Yuck. Would you guys be a part of the Panda Poop Club? Remember, you have to sniff the poop and hold it in your hands. That doesn't sound like something I'd want to do. "It was on a paper towel," I reminded him. "Even so, Pete. It's true, he was the only one of us to hold it. We all sniffed it, but that was before we knew what it was. We thought it was a peeled sweet potato. It was the same color as a sweet potato. It was shaped like one, too. So how were we supposed to know it was poop? It smelled like grass to me. That was before I found out grass and bamboo smelled a lot alike." Jane, the panda keeper, had signed Fudge's official certificate. "When I get enough money, I'm going to buy my own panda," he'd told her. "Where will you keep him?" Jane asked. "In my apartment. I'll have a very big apartment with a panda room, and when it's nice out, I'll walk my panda in Central Park. Mom will cook him sweet potatoes, and I'll have another room filled with bamboo. And I'll take his poop to school for sharing and let all the kids sniff it, especially Richie Potter." Now Fudge began to tell Mom and Dad everything he'd learned about pandas. Even though they look soft and cuddly, they're still wild animals. They have claws and sharp teeth. You know why their heads are so big? Because pandas are born to chew. Their jaws are so strong they can crunch bamboo, and they use their hands like raccoons do. "It sounds as if you learned a lot this morning," Dad said. I did. Jane said I was a very good listener, and guess what else? We got to feed carrots to the pandas. Everyone but Minnie. He ate the carrot himself. Cousin Howie offered to drive us to the train station in his van. On the way, we passed the White House. If Dad and Mom were president, I thought, this is where we'd live. I'd like Jimmy to come down to hang out. We'd bowl and swim and have sock slides down the longest hallways. Then we'd see movies in the screening rooms, and the family chef would make us popcorn. I'd give just one interview a week, maybe two, on MTV or Nickelodeon. I'd have an opinion on everything, especially books, video games, music, the internet, and movies. When Peter Hatcher speaks, young Americans listens. That's what they'd say about me. If you guys could go on TV, what would you talk about to tell about your opinions? I bet some of you would do video games just like he would. I was enjoying my fantasy until Fudge leaned close and whispered, I wonder what the president said. About what? About the banana on that lady's suit. Probably he didn't even notice, and if he did, he'd be too polite to mention it. You know what, Pete? Fudge said, looking out the window of the van. Someday this will all be mine. What will be yours? This place, he said, as we passed the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. It'll be called Fudgington then. Don't hold your breath, I told him. I never hold my breath, Pete, unless I'm underwater. When we got to the train station, Dad asked Cousin Howie where they were heading next. New England tub, Cousin Howie said, pulling into a passenger drop-off area. I noticed Dad had stopped trying to get them to use his real name. In a few weeks from now, Cousin Howie continued, as we get our stuff out of the van, we'll be showing our little tribe the sights and sounds of your city. I dropped my suitcase. Our city? Only problem, Howie said, is that we haven't been able to find a place to stay. Why, maybe I can help, Dad said. Why, thanks, Tubby. We'd love to spend a few days in New York and with you and your family. What I meant, Dad said quickly, is that maybe I can help you find a hotel. A hotel? Howie said. Now, why would we prefer a hotel over staying with you? Our apartment is small, Mom said. The boys share a divided room, and Tootsie's crib is in a remodeled closet. Not a problem for us, Cousin Howie said. We have our camping gear right here in the van. Never travel without it. The Honolulu Hatchers are ready for whatever comes their way. Yes, but you see, Mom began. Eudora covered Mom's hand with her own. We're family, Anne. Wait till you see how little space we take up. We're used to making ourselves practically invisible, aren't we? Minnie Farley growled. Eudora said, he's showing you how well he fits into the forest. West 68th Street isn't exactly the forest, I thought. Up with the sun, Cousin Howie said, and asleep with the moon. You'll hardly know we're there. Mom had this weak smile on her face as she looked at Dad. Just say no, I begged inside my head. Well, Howie, Dad said, you'd be more than welcome at our place. Just let us know when. And give us some warning, I said, so I can arrange to stay at Jimmy's, I was thinking. What Peter means, Dad said, is give us some warning so he can clean up his room. Isn't that right, Peter? Dad looked at me and I got the message. Yeah, I said, sure, that's exactly what I mean. Chapter 10, Bird on Strike. When we got home, Grandma told us Uncle Feather hadn't said a word since we left. I'm worried, Grandma said. He could have a sore throat. Uncle Feather's fine, Fudge told her. He'll talk tonight. How do you know? I asked. I know my bird, Pete. Fudge pulled a chair over to the kitchen counter, stood on it, climbed up, opened the cupboard, and pulled out a package of rice cakes. Don't spoil your appetite, Grandma said. I've made you a nice supper. Cocos and Moroccan chicken. Not that I had to ask. Just catching whiffs from the oven was enough to make my mouth water. Grandma nodded. And Buzzy's coming up to join us. Great, I said. Grandma and Buzzy Sr. met over the summer in Maine. And as Mom likes to say, one thing led to another. They were married at the end of August. I really like Buzzy Sr. The only problem, and it's a big one, is he's Sheila Tubman's grandfather. The idea that I could be Sheila Tubman's step-something is revolting. Sheila's coming too, Grandma said. I groaned. Now, Peter, Grandma began. I didn't wait for her to finish. Come on, Grandma. You knew about Sheila and me before you married Buzzy. That doesn't mean you two can't be civil to one another. What's civil? Fudge asked, climbing onto Grandma's lap with the rice cake. Grandma stroked his hair. It means not being rude. So in other words, what we use in our class, we'd say, you can at least be kind. Oh, I think think something happened to the video. Oh, there it goes. Fine, I said. I'll be civil. It could even mean being pleasant and respectful, Grandma added. I'm pleasant and respectful, Fudge said, munching away. Right? Oh, yeah, I told him. You're the most pleasant and respectful person ever. He laughed, and when he did, half of the chewed-up rice cake inside his mouth wound up on the floor. Turtle lapped it up like it was the world's best treat. Grandma suggested Fudge try to keep his food in his mouth, but Fudge told her, Turtle loves chewed-up food. Look, and he let another mouthful go. That's enough, Fudge, Grandma said. Finish your rice cake, then tell me all about Washington. You mean Fudgington? He asked. That's when I took off from my room. Turtle padded down the hall after me. I stopped to take a look at Uncle Feather. How's it going? I asked, standing right in front of his cage. He looked at me, but he didn't say anything, so I said, Bonjour, silly. That's one of his favorite expressions. Once you get him started on that one, forget it. You can't turn him off. But this time, instead of repeating it over and over, he scratched his head with his foot. What's your problem? I asked. Did you miss us? Is that it? Were you lonely? He picked up a rattle with his foot and shook it. He loves Tootsie's baby toys, but he still didn't say anything. So I tried some of his favorite words. The really bad ones, the ones Mom calls not good appropriate words. Turtle sat up, waiting, but Uncle Feather just yawned like he was bored or tired. Either way, he had nothing to say. I thought, maybe he does have a sore throat. Maybe he has laryngitis. Half an hour later, when Sheila came in with Buzzy Sr., she said, Did Muriel tell you about your bird, Fudge? What about my bird? He hasn't said a word since you left. I was up here yesterday and again this morning, and he wouldn't speak at all. He'll talk tonight, Fudge said. I'd like to know how you can be so sure of that, I said. I know my bird, Pete, he said for the second time. I know you're right, Sheila said. Then she asked, So how is Washington? You mean Fudgington, Fudge said. Sheila shook her head in disgust. Muriel, she said, you have to do something about your youngest grandson. He thinks the world revolves around him. The world revolves around the sun, Fudge said. I learned that at the planetarium. She just shook her head again. That night, while I was on my bed reading, I heard Fudge talking to Uncle Feather. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the monsters bite. And Uncle Feather answering, Good night. Sleep tight. Bite, bite, bite. I went into Fudge's room to see Uncle Feather for myself, but Fudge had already covered his cage. Shush, Pete, Fudge said. He's sleeping now. Fudge was snuggled up with his bag of shredded money. The next day it was the same thing. Uncle Feather wouldn't talk to any of us, but Fudge said, Don't worry, he'll talk tonight. Just as Fudge promised. That night I heard him talking to his bird. Everybody's worried about you, Uncle Feather. But you're fine, aren't you? You're a fine birdie. Fine birdie. Just fine. Birdie, birdie. Fudge laughed. The next day when Uncle Feather still wouldn't talk to me or Mom or Dad, I asked Fudge, How come he only talks to you? Because I'm his favorite. Okay, let's say the truth. That still doesn't explain why he'll only talk at night. Who can explain it? Who can tell you why? Fudge sang. That's a line from a song Buzzy sings to Grandma. Try, I told him. Try what, Pete? Try and explain why Uncle Feather only talks at night. I can't, Pete. How long has it been since he's only talked at night? Since... I could tell he was stalling. I'm listening, I told him. I know you are, Pete. Well, he only talks at night since Richie Potter was here for a play date. What's Richie Potter got to do with it? Fudge shrugged. That's a pretty weird story, Fudge. Weird stories happen, Pete. I shook my head. I didn't believe him for a minute. Not 1 minute. I knew him too well. So, he was hiding something. So that night I waited outside his bedroom door. Since he's afraid of monsters, he never closes it all the way. Okay, I want you to think. Why do you think it is? Uncle Feather has not talked since Richie Potter came over. Did Richie Potter do something? Did something happen? Did the bird do something? We'll find out.